Well, shalom, everybody. Welcome back. Thank you so much for joining me. We're going to continue looking at this absolutely fascinating and unique book entitled Pirkei Avot, which is the ethics of the fathers. And it is very much a book that's written in the vein of Sefer Mishlei, the book of Proverbs. And if you're somebody who really likes the book of Proverbs, because and most people do, but most people sort of forget that they do. And you know, in the past you'll have maybe watched a movie and there'll be like a piece of text will flash up, white text will flash up over a black screen, and it'll be a proverb. It'll be a piece of wisdom, and that kind of frames the whole film. This sort of opening phrase, you know, it's something that kind of gets you kind of in the mood to about whatever you're going to actually receive, and whatever message this particular story is going to have unfold in front of you. And so when you just engage in something that's purely designed to impart wisdom to you, you feel like you're really spending your time wisely, because you're kind of like soaking everything up. And this is pretty much this book. Every verse, every paragraph, every chapter is just full of so much good advice. And it's, if you don't have a copy of this, you get a copy as soon as you can. You can pick it up anywhere and everywhere. And as you can see, it's not a very thick book. You'll get through it pretty quickly, but it'll just blow you away. It'll be like a breath of fresh air for you, or it could feel like a bucket of cold water thrown over your head. But even that's a good thing, because it wakes you up. And there's nothing like being vigorously woken up and pulled out of a slumber and shown clarity, whether you like it or not. Most times, we don't like it, and it's only because we've been ignorant or we've chosen to do the wrong thing. But inevitably, the truth always finds us again. You can't run away from the event. You can't run away from the truth forever. You can distract yourself, but eventually you've got to face the music. And so why not manually make yourself face the music as much as you can? And so facing the music isn't going to be so much a case of the expression anymore of facing the music. It'll be like, okay, let's do this. I'm prepared for this. It's not like a facing the music moment. This is what I've been longing for, to finally, receive the reward from my hard work. But most people don't see judgment like that. They see it as going to be a pretty bad time, and they try not to think about it, because they know that they're going to, probably going to receive a pretty bad judgment, because they could have tried a heck of a lot harder than they have been. And so, we're not going to do that. We're going to go, okay, let's do this. What do we got to do? What are we here for? Okay, we're going to do this. We're not going to just be sort of distracted and run off, down dead end alleys anymore. We're going to find out what it is we have to do as individuals to merit some sort of reward, to merit salvation. Okay, so last time we got up to verse 15 of chapter 3. Rabbi Elazar the Moda'ite said, "One who desecrates sacred things, who disgraces the festivals, who humiliates his fellow in public, who nullifies the covenant of our father Abraham, or perverts the Torah contrary to the halakha, though he may have Torah and good deeds, he has no share in the world to come, the Olam Haba." Now, that's an interesting verse, because, one would think, well, if somebody does anything to desecrate a festival, or humiliates his brother in public, or nullifies the covenant of Abraham, or in any way perverts the Torah, or refuses to follow the halakha set down by the sages, obviously that's somebody who's not keeping the Torah. So how could they have the Torah? And, obviously these aren't good deeds, because these are deeds that are going directly against the Torah. But there are many climates and variables that we have to factor in here. Depending where you are, doing something may offend the people that in the environment that you find yourself. Somebody may feel intimidated, so somebody may feel as though they have to sort of curtail some sort of observance so as not to make a host feel uncomfortable. Or they put themselves into situations and predicaments. They're not following the halakha. They have their own halakha. They make up their own halakha. They follow a halakha that is not agreed upon. A way of doing things that is new, or is something that wasn't agreed upon by the greats, the men of old. There are a whole myriad of things. Let's see what the commentary says, if anything. Who nullifies the covenant by refusing to circumcise himself, or being surgically or by surgically concealing his circumcision. So a person may go against the Torah in terms of refusing to circumcise an 8-day-old baby, although I don't know who would do that, who professes to follow the Torah, or tries to reverse their circumcision somehow, which was a practice that was done in the time leading up to the War of the Maccabees. This is somebody and they may keep a great Shabbat. Their Shabbat observance may be fantastic. But over here in this other place, they're doing something horrific. They're nullifying the covenant of Abraham. And so this person has no share in the world to come. So be warned that you can't be have something exceedingly pristine and you do something really well in one area, and there's some other area that you're deliberately going against the laws and the customs ruled down by the sages or whatever, whether it be directly against the Torah itself. You are not going to get any traction because you are apikorsut, you are a heretic, and your ideology is all off because just one of the 13 principles of the faith by the Rambam, if you don't believe just one of those 13 principles, just one, believe all 12 others, you are apikorsut. You are a heretic. You are a heretic, and you have no place in the kingdom. You can't dwell with your brothers in Shemaim. You can't walk among the beautiful orchards with the greats. You can't study in the yeshiva halls, in Shemaim. We can't have you there. You can't be there. You can't enjoy the sweetness of the Torah in the world to come. We can't have you there, because you're just the thin end of the wedge, because just that one little crack in your armor is going to cause all this poisonous fumes to come in and kill everybody. It's just a matter of time. And somebody who knows that they're not on point with everything, they should have a mindset that, okay, I'm not ready to be, anyone to think anything of me yet. I know I've got to get my head around this other concept, and any type of talk of me being with the elites, that's theft, that's robbery. I don't deserve to be there. I've got to get this other thing right. That's the thing. People say, I want to go to heaven. It's not whether you're going to go to heaven, it's whether you can be eligible to be there. Because it would be unfair for you to be able to be there, and there are people that actually worked hard and labored and toiled, and you want the same heaven as them. That's not fair. That's not fair. It's not how life works. That's not how the parameters that the Almighty set in place operate. That's unfair. That's unfair. I don't want to get the same Shemaim as David Melech or as Avram Avinu. I mean, I'd like to, but I know I'm not worthy to get the same Shemaim as them. It's just common sense. You think, I'm going to sort of be on the same level as David. You're off your head. You've got no concept of any order of propriety of reality. And the greats really aren't sort of thinking about their accolades and their rewards. They're just thinking about the sweetness of the Torah that they're experiencing in the world of the finite. With all the constraints of the requirements of daily living. That's where the real sweetness of the Torah is that they can still be in a finite world with all the requirements that they have and the responsibilities they have to actually exist and to live and to be responsible for children and so on and so forth. That's where the sweetness lies. They're already in Shemaim because they're earning their Shemaim in this world. And so they sleep well at night because they know that they're trying the hardest that they possibly can. And they know what the most important thing in the world is, and that's the Torah. Okay, so verse 16, Rabbi Yishmael said, be yielding to a superior, pleasant to the young, and receive every person cheerfully. Don't be a pain in the neck for your boss. Some of you get some perverse pleasure out of being the kind of the group annoyance. You see that in some congregations. You get a guy tries to turn up with a new controversy every week, and he gets known as a guy that's constantly a thorn in the side of the people that are trying to run the group. You don't want to be that guy. You don't want to be somebody who gives your teacher or those that are in positions of responsibility over you, that gives them loss of sleep through worry, and causes them anxiety or pain. You want to be as teachable and as nice a student as you possibly can. Don't become a source of frustration for your teacher or your mentor. It's just going to be a world of hurt for you. Pleasant to the young. Don't scare small children. Have a pleasant sounding voice. Be charming. If you come into contact with children, maybe you've got to teach a really young class. Spend some time learning and researching and educating yourself on how to actually connect with children through certain ways and means and devices. Don't try and scare children. You're talking to children now. You've got to acknowledge that you're talking to people that are in the last generation, a very low generation, and so you've got to be able to switch gears. So don't be afraid to switch gears. Doesn't mean that you change anything, any principle of what you're teaching, but you clothe that teaching in something that's appropriate. Receive every person cheerfully. That guy that yelled at you on the freeway, there's no reason why you should take out your anger and your frustration at being yelled at to your work colleagues or your teacher, your superior, or whatever. You should just, they're a new person. Hey, good morning, how are you? Oh, I'm good, thanks, how are you? Sometimes you get people that will say, I had a terrible morning. I had a guy yell at me on the road. And as they're describing the event, they start yelling. And so the person that they're talking to, they're not yelling at the person. They're actually yelling at the person that yelled at them on the freeway. But they start getting angry, like as if they were in front of that person, and they're playing that out in front of you. And effectively, you're still raising your voice at the person. Okay, they know you're not yelling at them. You're just venting your frustration. But still, that's sort of, that would perhaps disturb other people who will come from other offices and say, is everything okay? I heard yelling. So, you got to just, and anybody that yells at you or does mock you or, does anything to you, then you thank Hashem. Thank Hashem for that situation and take whatever it is that you get. Obviously within reason. Obviously, if they're coming to steal from you or they're going to endanger you or your vehicle or whatever, you've got to do whatever you can. But if you can receive that and be like dust to everyone in that respect, then more power to you. You are seen in Shemaim as being a co-creator of the universe with Hashem. If at a point of ridicule, public disgrace and embarrassment, you remain silent. If you can, that's just saying if you can, and that'll show that you're on an extremely high level. Rabbi Akiva said, this is verse 17, mockery and levity accustom a man to immorality. So if you're somebody who goes out, socializes a lot, likes to laugh, likes to make other people laugh, and you want to sort of be Jack the Lad at your social event, and it's all about who can crack everybody else up, make everybody else laugh the hardest, and you're recalling certain stories of the past, and there's a lot of vulgarity, there's a lot of swearing, there's a lot of immodesty, and everybody's drinking. There's people eventually become inebriated. You can guarantee that this type of lifestyle will accustom all those who enjoy those type of environments to be people who are also enmeshed in immorality. It's just a guarantee, an absolute guarantee. These two things come in hand in hand. Lightheadedness and loose talk and immorality, they're the best of friends. The transmitted oral Torah is a protective fence around the Torah. We're in an environment where the majority of the Messianic world are against the oral Torah and the rabbis, and it's only to their own detriment, and it's why to this day that the movement hasn't been able to stand on its own 2 feet. That's reality, and it won't until it all changes. You see these groups emerge very strong, very powerful. Then the rabbi gets caught in a sexual transgression in the congregation, and he gets questioned by the FBI, and they take photos of him. And essentially he commits an act of immorality with somebody who's underage. Or you get another group, you get a leader. The group starts out strong, and then all of a sudden you get a group break away from that main group, and then all of a sudden have a disdain and a mistrust and a dislike to this leader, and then all of a sudden all these other groups pop up that are in conjunction with this other leader, and the groups are actually called things like so-and-so exposed. And so this happens, and then you get another group, they get involved in polygamy, and they, at one time they were a very strong force in the movement, and they had books they were publishing, translations of the Bibles that they were publishing, and they were bestsellers, and their ministry was on the up and up. And then all of a sudden they began to teach that polygamy was something that people can engage in, and the leader himself taking on an additional wife and practicing polygamy. And then all of a sudden that was the poison in the congregation then shrink back to a sort of lounge room, sort of home fellowship. He was on the cusp of actually opening schools. And I've seen this time and time again. I could do a whole video, just one story after the other, after the other, after the other. And this is all kind of predicated and based on the underlying foundation of the Messianic world, which is anti-rabbinical by nature, because they wrongly think that Messiah, Yeshua, was anti-rabbinical and anti-Pharisaic, and that he was against the Torah, the oral Torah, and it's all nonsense. Anyway, that's enough about that. Tithes are a protective fence for the wealth. So if you want to truly have a chance of being wealthy, you should give 10%, and you should also be as generous as you possibly can be within reason with your finances, and also do tzedakah, give charity. Vows are a protective fence for abstinence. Though we're taught against making vows are a part of the Torah, and they very much play a role in terms of giving somebody a motivation to actually change a certain behavior. Sometimes a vow will give them that motivation to maintain the propriety of the behavior that they should have. But on the whole, if we can, we're to avoid making vows, because if we do make a vow, then Hashem holds us to whatever it is we said we were going to do. A protective fence for wisdom is silence. Keep the mouth shut, guys. You don't have to speak half as much as you do. In terms of speaking Torah, talk more Torah. You can't speak enough Torah. But in terms of just talking nonsense, even a fool who keeps his mouth shut appears wise. 18, he used to say, "Beloved is man, for he was created in Elohim's image. It is indicative of a greater love that it was made known to him that he was created in Elohim's image, as it is said, for in the image of Elohim he made him." Genesis 9:6. Beloved are the people of Israel, for they are described as children of the Omnipresent. It is indicative of the greater love that it was made known to them that they are described as children of the Omnipresent, as it is said, "You are children to Hashem, your Elohim." Deuteronomy 14:1. Remember, the nation of Israel is set apart people. They have been gathered and set aside by Hashem to be an example to the rest of the world. So That's why when the nation of Israel over the years turns to assimilation, that some of the most horrific events before them. But throughout the generations, the nation of Israel has, despite these horrific persecutions that have happened in different centuries by superpower nations, Hashem has preserved the nation of Israel as what they once were, and they're the same as that today. Unlike the other nations of the world, there's no longer people that live in the world that are like the Babylonians of the ancient world. They're no longer Egyptians of the ancient world who worship the Egyptian gods. That's not a thing. There's no Romans. We don't have Rome anymore as a power, really, like it was in ancient times. And ancient Persia, is now Iran. It's all the regimes all gone. But the nation of Israel are what they always were. They are that still today, quoting Mark Twain. There's no slowing in their moving parts. They were vigorous then, and they're vigorous today. But that comes at a price. The nation of Israel have to be above reproach. For I've given you a good teaching, do not forsake my Torah, Proverbs 4:2. Don't, if you're Jewish, your mother's Jewish, you need to return to the Torah if you haven't already. Because one way or another, Hashem's going to get you there, so you might as well, allow it to come through the head rather than through the legs, as they say. Verse 19, everything is foreseen, yet the freedom of choice is given. The world is judged with goodness, and everything depends on the abundance of good deeds. Everything is foreseen, yet the freedom of choice is given. This is a fundamental concept of divine providence. Although Elohim foresees the path man will adopt, this in no way restricts man's complete freedom of choice. Nothing is imposed upon man, and Elohim's foreknowledge and man's free will are not contradictory. So just because Hashem knows what's going to happen, you don't. So, at the end of the day, all you can see is the choices that you can make. Yes or no. Go or don't go. Buy or don't buy. Just because, Hashem might know or not know something, and you've got to understand that Hashem is omnipresent, He's all-powerful. If He wants, He can choose not to know something. People don't often think about this, that if He wants to, because He's Hashem and He can do anything, He can choose not to know something if He wants to. I'm not saying He does, but He can choose not to know if He wants to, or He can choose to delay knowing what the outcome's going to be. He can do whatever He wants. The ways of Hashem are myriads of ways, and they're so they're complex. They're so infinite. We've just got a time ahead of us just to sort ourselves out, let alone trying to sort out the mind of Hashem, which is impossible. So why don't we just do what we've been put on the world to do, and that is to just fix ourselves. Everything is foreseen, yet the freedom of choice is given. The world is judged with goodness, and everything depends on the abundance of good deeds. Man is condemned or acquitted according to the preponderance of his good or bad deeds. Alternatively, one should accustom himself to repeat good deeds over and over again. So, remember the last time you gave somebody, a $50 bill, somebody, and they started crying, so I can't believe this is really going to help me out. It's happened to me, a few times. And you just happen to give somebody something at that crucial point that it pushes them to tears. How good do you feel after that? The goodness that you feel that can't be equaled by money or seeking a pleasurable experience. There's just a pureness and a warmth that you feel when you have really can see that your good deed is come at a crucial time and somebody was really near the edge, and you've pushed them way back and given them hope again. And so how about we just keep repeating that? We just keep going out of our way to see if we can keep doing something or an array of things that are going to be for man's good. And you've got to be clever. You can't just give your money to any Tom, Dick, or Harry, or give your time or resources. The biggest things you can do is kiruv and help Jews to return to observance. That's the biggest thing. Help Jews to come back to the Torah and to be kosher Jews, become kosher Jews, not Manis Friedman disciples. You want them to become kosher Jews. And you want to do whatever you can to help and support kiruv. And Torah learning too. You can support a yeshiva. You can finance a Jew to study Torah full time, and he doesn't have to work, and therefore his Torah that he learns, it becomes your Torah as well. Money is a very important part of the Torah, and it can be used in a multitude of ways to do some really amazing things if you are to learn how to actually utilize your money properly in terms of your faith. It's not just kind of like a black and white thing. There's things that you can do to really achieve lots of different results on different levels. It's really amazing if you choose to sort of look into it. You can help people with money, or you can help people who are nobody, and help them become somebody and to come to the Torah. Or you can get an existing Torah Bakor, Torah scholar, a yeshiva student, and you can support him so that he can, become great, and maybe down the track he might become a great teacher, and maybe, who knows, maybe a rabbi, and you were somebody who was financially supporting him in the early days, and so the merits of that is going to be endless. They're going to continue as more and more good comes from this individual as he influences other individuals to become great men and women, and also influences other great rabbis to appear. You'll still keep reaping the benefits of that Orthodox Jew back in the yeshiva when he was a young lad. In the early days, you'll still maintain and be reaping the rewards for all the Torah that is going to come exponentially for all the people that get influenced. So, you got to think about it. You go, okay, that's really, I've never thought of that before. Yeah, and there's plenty of places on the web you can find legitimate places. Orthodox have to be frum, they have to be Orthodox. Means they're not going to be talking about Jesus. They're not going to be talking about Yeshua. Like, you need to get that in your head. But nonetheless, these are people that are going to be serious about the Torah. They're serious about it. More serious than you've probably ever experienced in your life. And you're contributing funds to them so that they don't have to worry about their mundane needs, and they can raise a family, and they can be studying Torah around the clock. That's a pretty big investment. It's a pretty big investment. I forgot where I was up to and all that. I think we're up to verse 20 of chapter 3. He used to say everything is given on collateral, and a net is spread over all the living. The shop is open, the merchant extends credit, the ledger is open, the hand writes, and whoever wishes to borrow, let him come and borrow. The collector makes their rounds constantly every day and collect payment from the person, whether he realizes it or not. They have proof to rely upon the judgment. Is a truthful judgment, and everything is prepared for the final festive banquet. I have to read that again. My mind trailed off. Sorry. He used to say everything is given on collateral, and a net is spread out over all the living. The shop is open, the merchant extends credit, the ledger is open, the hand writes, whoever wishes to borrow, let him come and borrow. The collectors make their rounds constantly every day and collect payment from a person, whether they realize it or not. They have proof to rely upon. The judgment is a truthful judgment, and everything is prepared for the final festive banquet. The metaphor is that Elohim's conduct of the world is likened to a business. He grants man the goodness of the world, freedom and opportunity, on the pledge that he will utilize them properly. No unpaid debt, however long, is ever cancelled, and no one can evade his responsibilities. So man gives you this body. He gives you this ability to think. He gives you the ability to work and to achieve goals. And he gives you the ability to grow and to mature what are you going to do in that time here that is going to be reciprocal to all the things that he's already given you? How are you going to pay him back? So in a way, you can equate this all like a business transaction. Verse 21, Rabbi Elazar ben Azariah says, if there is no Torah, there is no worldly occupation. If there is no worldly occupation, there is no Torah. If there is no wisdom, there is no fear of Elohim. If there is no fear of Elohim, there is no wisdom. If there is no knowledge, there is no understanding. If there is no understanding, there is no knowledge. If there is no flour, there is no Torah. If there is no Torah, there is no flour. There is no worldly occupation. The laws of the Torah regulate commerce and business ethics. Therefore, without Torah knowledge, without Torah knowledge and fidelity to its laws, one's business practices may well be improper. At the same time, a livelihood enables people to devote time to study. Knowledge and understanding both are necessary. Mere accumulation of knowledge is sterile without the reasoning and understanding which enables it to be integrated and applied. If there is no flour, i.e. sustenance, the body must be nourished properly in order to function. Effectively, without nourishment, one cannot study properly. Conversely, physical nourishment, the acquisition of material things only, is not enough. Man's intellect must be nourished with Torah as well. So essentially, we're being told here the importance of maintaining a healthy body. So therefore, one can concentrate and learn and absorb the things that he is going through as he studies the Torah. And so the idea is to not only acquire knowledge and understanding, but to apply that knowledge and understanding to daily life, which is the application of Chokhmah, wisdom. And so without the ability to actually apply wisdom, a person's knowledge and understanding really don't have any effect, and they sort of get cut off at the pass. They get hamstrung. They're not able to be actually blossom into the application of correct, wisdom and the correct behavior. So why bother learning it if you can't apply any of it? There's just no point to it if it's not learnt to apply, to improve, to fix, to repair, to restore, to grow. There's no point to it. But having said that, somebody who can't do a particular thing for whatever reason, then there is every way into still learning that. Just because I can't fulfill the rededication of the Beit HaMikdash, and I can't build the Beit HaMikdash, I can't officiate in it, I learn all about its construction, its dedication, and its function, how it's officiated, as though I'm going to be prepared myself to go in and do all those things, though I'm not going to be doing any of them. So I just wanted to clarify that. So even though there's some things we aren't eligible to do, we're to learn them and to study them and remember them as though one day we might be called on to do them, even though that will never happen. Very interesting concept. Rabbi Eliezer ben Kim Kisma said, the laws of bird offerings and the laws regarding the beginning of menstrual periods, these are essential laws. Astronomy and mathematics are like the seasoning of wisdom. These are the areas of study which may appear to be unworthy or unattractive subject for a true Torah scholar. The Mishnah therefore emphasizes that no study of the Torah law is to be taken lightly. Such laws are essential. Similarly, other pursuits such as astronomy and mathematics, or according to some, the mystical study of the numerical values of Hebrew letters, as seasonings of wisdom, these disciplines should be studied only after one has filled his stomach with the study of Torah and Talmud. And that's why I'm learning one of the reasons, not why, it's one of the reasons why I'm learning the Talmud and studying the Talmud now, going through it in English. Is because, I would like to look into the Zohar and look into a few other things, but I really think it's unfair unless I try and at least go through the Talmud and with the intention that I'm looking for anything that I can apply in terms of my Noahide observance. A Noahide can read the Talmud. Absolutely, 100%. In fact, the Talmud mentions encourages one to do so and says that one is potentially is greater than the Kohen HaGadol, a Noahide who learns the Torah, learns the Gemara, learns the Talmud, with the intent that he might find any more specifics about the Noahide laws throughout the course of reading the Talmud. Could be somebody that is deemed greater than the Kohen HaGadol, which is a huge statement to make. I think I was reading the commentaries. Just bear with me here. Verse 22, he used to say, anyone whose wisdom exceeds his good deeds, to what is it likened? To a tree whose branches are numerous, but whose roots are few. So this is a tree who looks impressive on the surface, but in a big wind, it's not gonna prevail because its roots don't go deep enough. And there's loads of people like that today. They look good. First sign of trouble, and they're out of there. And you go, oh, okay, I thought they were like, oh no. I had one guy contact me and start a Torah group, and I started asking him and somebody else he invited to the group for their learning schedules, their study schedules, and like they both started getting a bit flustered. They go, oh, no one's ever asked us what our learning schedule is like, meaning, they didn't have one. And so from there we go, okay, well, let's write you up a learning schedule. Anyway, so it took ages, and the guy that set up the group, I thought he would have kind of at least been on top of it. I asked him repeated times, can I get your learning schedule, your weekday learning schedule and your Sabbath learning schedule? They go, oh, and then finally the guy, he changed me to being the group's administrator, and he left. I said, hang on, you've just invited a new guy, and now you're leaving the group. And you started a group, invited a new guy to the group to introduce him to me. Now you're leaving the group. This is not going to be a good look. And he said, okay, put me back on. And I put him back on. And then a few days later, he said, no, I'm leaving the group. And at least he made an announcement. And then he left. And I'm shaking my head. So to this day, I'm still friends with the other guy, the newcomer that came into the group, who's doing fabulously in terms of his learning. And the other guy just disappeared. And the other guy was the guy that sort of was trying to introduce this other guy who was new to the Torah. So it's interesting, some of the things that happen. And you just go, huh? And if you're watching this and you don't have a learning schedule, get a learning schedule. You don't have a learning schedule, get some type of learning schedule. You should be reading Psalms, going through the book of Psalms once a month and reading according to the rabbinical cycle. They go through, I think we're in the second reading today, which takes us from sort of verse 9 through verse 14, I think. And every month you read the entire book of Psalms. You should be reading the Torah portions every week, but not just that, you should be reading the daily aliyahs. So the Torah portion is broken down to a daily aliyah. You can get plenty of phones to have the aliyah of each day. And you are to read the daily aliyahs. And then on top of that, you're to read the commentaries to the Torah. And then come Sabbath, you'd read through the entire Torah again. So you've effectively read the Torah at least twice and maybe the commentaries at least once. And then on top of that, you should be learning particular works to do with Shimurat HaLashon, clean speech, because we speak most of the time. Most of us speak a lot. And so therefore it's a area of potentially a lot of sins. So we should learn how to speak properly. And so it should be a component learning of how to speak. And somebody who is a Noahide who is interested can also learn about the actual halakha of the Jews. And also be learning about, of course, goes without saying, the 7 covenants, and then particularly the Noahide covenant. And this is all meant to be sort of scheduled. You put a rough schedule and you follow the schedule. If you don't have a schedule, you're just kind of doing anything. You're just flying around and going, it'll be okay. No, it won't be okay. And it won't be okay because you won't set yourself a schedule and you won't try and stick to that schedule. So it won't be okay. It'll begin to be okay when you start taking this more seriously. And until then, it won't be okay. And I'm probably one of the very few people that has the guts to tell you. It's probably why I get so many views on all my videos. People don't like to hear the truth. People would much rather hear stuff that puffs them up and gets them excited about something else, a world event or something. You look at the channels that talk about current events and the Iran-Israeli crisis, loads of views. Torah channels that don't even talk about that. Torah channels that look at the Mishnah, look at the Gemara, they're in the hundreds if you're lucky. And with the exception of some rabbis. Rabbi Elazar ben, Rabbi Elazar ben Kamsa said the laws of bird offerings and the laws regarding the beginning of menstrual periods, these are the essential laws of astronomy and mathematics. I like the seasoning of the wisdom. Okay, we just read that. And that takes us to the end of chapter 3. I think we'll leave it there. And that way we can start fresh in chapter 4 in the next video. So that's pretty cool. Just make sure I've covered everything. Understanding, knowledge, understanding both necessary. If there's no flower, we looked at that. Law of birds, laws of bird offerings, and the laws regarding the beginning of menstrual periods. These are the areas of study which may appear to be unworthy or unattractive subject for a true Torah scholar. The Mishnah therefore emphasizes that no study of the Torah law is to be taken lightly. Such laws are essential. Similarly, other pursuits such as astronomy and mathematics, or according to some, the mathematics study of... we already read this. Yeah, we already read this. Sorry. Okay, we'll leave it there. Thank you so much for joining me. I hope you have a great day. And until next time, Hashem willing, bye for now.